Hey everybody, this is Giancarlo Olino reporting for Sportskeeda MMA, and I'm happy to be joined by my guest today, who's going to be talking about this exciting time in the PFL. He is the newest addition to their roster. He is Khai, the Shadow Wu. How you doing, Khai?
Good, good. Thank you very much.
And Khai, this is an exciting time. You recently joined the PFL. They announced that you're going to be coming over, being one of their new additions there in that bantamweight division. Uh,
Yeah.
what came down to this decision to join the PFL, and how long did the negotiations last?
It was good. The negotiations were pretty quick. I think it was a long conversation, if that makes sense. It started, I want to say last year. I was talking to Lauren, that was my connect, and then we just slowly kind of built a relationship from there, and then it kind of led here. And the reason why I think PFL is such an interesting concept and tournament format, and then it's still kind of newer. I don't know. I've been a fan since they were a World Series of Fighting, right? So I kind of liked it. And when the opportunity kind of arose, there was a couple other different opportunities. I would be lying if I said money wasn't, part of the deciding factor because I feel like I've been fighting for a while now. I've been working really hard, and I kind of want to get paid what I'm worth. So when I had other couple promotions approach me, I think PFL had the best offer, and honestly, they've been great to deal with. So I really liked it.
That's great to hear. And also, like, even mentioning the opportunity they have with the playoffs and the regular season, is that
Yeah.
what appealed to you more, that sports aspect to it?
I want to stay active. So definitely seeing that, you have to be active, you have to keep fighting. I like that concept. Another thing too was I think the that opportunity of like fighting in the playoffs, the way they score the points, I thought that was very interesting because it gives a fighter an incentive. Like you don't just go out there and just try to win the fight, you try to dominate, you try to get a finish. So I think I want more finishes in my career, and I think that will put more pressure on both guys, me and my opponent, to get a finish out there. So I thought that was exciting.
And the PFL announced your fight, and it's going to be coming up there. So, does it set in now? Does it feel more real that you have a fight that you are preparing for now that you're on the roster?
Yeah, definitely. I think it gives me a little bit more pressure, like I know I signed with PFL, it's all cool and stuff, but I want to get that first fight over with. And also that a little bit of that pressure, I like it. I kind of like, oh man, it's it's like it's scary, you got to fight again, and those bright lights. I haven't fought since this year, February. It's not very long, but for me, that's a long time. I usually fight 3 times, 4 times a year, COVID the past couple years, it hasn't allowed me to, but I'm getting a little bit of nervous, like I'm getting those nerves again. And I think that's when I've always performed best. So, it really is exciting. I just can't wait to get over that first fight. I'm not saying it's going to be smooth sailing from there, but, after that first fight, I think I could really take a minute to appreciate the induction into the PFL roster, and showcasing my real performance and my skills and building off on all that. I think I'll be able to take a moment, sit back, and enjoy with all my coaches and teammates and family and friends that, like, hey, we did it.
Yeah, for sure. And the PFL major promotion now. You had some experience. You were in Bellator a few years back. So, what did you take away from that experience? And what did you learn about yourself as a fighter now that you have another opportunity with another major promotion in the PFL?
I think it was good that I had those learning lessons early on, because that's what set me up for today. Fighting for Bellator in my first pro fight in the States, that was a eye opener. That was a shocker. And I fought right before their prelims ended and their main card started. They squeezed me into one more fight. And then I'm like, oh man, am I cut out for this line of work? And then when I got in there and kind of did that, I was like, man, what? I am. I am. Even though it didn't go my way, it still was like, okay, I'm comfortable being here. It wasn't so scary to where I'm like, I don't want to do this again. You know what I mean? It was like I found myself at home a little bit, certain parts of me was like, I like this. And then as much as I hated, I kept going back to it, and I was invited back again, and I took another opportunity, so it felt great. And honestly felt great. I really liked it. And after being invited to one of the PFL events recently and watching it, I'm like, man, I love this energy. The only difference though is this card is a little bit bigger, but I feel like I've kind of prepared for it pretty well with my last two fights, and all this experience that I've accumulated led me here. And I think that's what'll help me get the advantage in this fight, not against my opponent per se, but like of advantage over myself. Like I'm not going to get nervous or worried heading into the fight.
And I guess every fighter is different, but do you feel that you perform better when you get a little bit nervous, or do you think that it maybe affects your performance when you go in and you overthink things?
I think I do better under pressure and stress because it just sharpens my senses. I think that's what some people. But when I say I'm not as nervous going into the fight, it's just more like I've been there. I fought for a big promotion. I know the amount of people, what it feels like fighting under those bright lights and in front of so many people. So when I go out there, it's like, man, it feels good. The nerves of heading into a fight will always be there. Those are separate nerves. Those are fight nerves versus it's like, imagine I've never fought for a big promotion and I'm like, man, what's it going to feel like under those lights and the crowd, and then it's PFL. I've been there, so it's like it feels good. It feels like I know that feeling. So yeah, I'm excited to perform under the fight nerves, but in terms of like under the bright lights, I feel like I've been there. It feels familiar.
Just even give our viewers here get to know you a little bit better and your career. Like, when did you start with martial arts, or just even take a liking to MMA?
Well, I started martial arts at the age of 9 with my brother-in-law, Dave Camarillo. I did jujitsu. It was more for self-defense. I loved basketball first, and then it slowly kind of drifted into me competing in jujitsu. And then I'm like, oh man, jujitsu is so fun, but I kind of want to do some striking. And then I got hit. I didn't like it. And when I don't like something, I try to get better at it. So I try to get better at it and better at it. And next thing you know, it's like one thing leads to the next. And next thing you know, I'm like competing. And then I'm like, I start putting more and more time into that. And then like training. I'm like, you know what I want to do? I think I want to like compete, for fun. And then that led to another thing. I'm like, man, I think I could do this. After I knocked out my first opponent as an amateur, I was like, maybe I could fight and make a living, but let's see. After the first loss I took as an amateur, I turned pro because I'm like, you know what, screw these decisions and short rounds. I want time to work. So I decided to go pro after that. And the next thing you know, I lucked out. I found a very good niche, if you will, in Taiwan, where my parents are from, and I was able to fight out there and kind of help grow the Asian MMA scene out there. And it's just kind of like cascaded into like more and more and more, and then it led me here now, and I'm like, man, it was such a unique journey that I can't really like explain. It's like people could follow along on Instagram and my Facebook and YouTube and just kind of see my whole journey. And that's what was really cool and unique about, I think, this is because I've had a lot of unique opportunities, and the fact that it, came into where it is today, I was like, man, I never saw that coming. So to answer your question in a very short answer, it's I never thought of I'd be a fighter, never.
And like, now that you're a pro, have some fights under your belt, and you're going to be in a major promotion here competing in the PFL, like, if you go back to just training, like, what was the first training session like where you realize, okay, this is different than just jujitsu? And
Yeah.
might how was that like, and who did you train with?
I trained with a couple of my teammates, I mean, like the guys that I train with, they still fight. I train with them. And I think growing up, I kind of saw a lot of fighters. So I was always like, not that I wasn't like, oh my gosh, these are 8K like high level fighters, because Dave Camarillo was a head coach at 8K, the jiu-jitsu coach at the time. So I saw like guys like John Fitch, Koscheck, Swick, Josh Thompson coming out, but for me, it was more like, hey, this is really cool. I kind of want to copy them. And then the first practice I did, I was like exhausted, like where I actually did MMA. I got punched, I hated it. I'm like, this is horrible. Why would anyone want to do this? And then it just slowly kind of, when I hate something, I either like will never do it again, or I want to get better at it. That's just the way my mind is, all in or all out. You know what I mean? So then I think with MMA, I was like, you know what? I need to be a little bit tougher. I need to fake it till I make it. And then it kind of like came from there because I got bullied a lot when I was younger. So I just didn't like that. And then I think that motivated me to get better and find more comfort in uncomfortable positions. So the first MMA session I had was rough. I don't think I don't think I've ever felt like that since that like first two sessions. Other than when I rolled with I got a chance to train with Mikey Musumeci, and he destroyed me in jiu-jitsu. And I was like, oh my
Oh,
gosh,
wow.
like it felt like a day one again. That felt like day one. Or when I trained with one of my jiu-jitsu coaches, BC Darren, he fought in the UFC. First time I was this is a fun little story. I tell it to him all the time, but I was like a pro, maybe 3-2 at the time, maybe 4-2. I felt really good. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna spar with a former UFC fighter, BC. I'm gonna like, show him what's up. And then I got submitted 8 times under like 5 minutes. It was so bad that after this sparring session, I had to like go home and rethink like, should I even be competing? Like, there's levels to this. What am I even doing? And then after realizing who he was, I was like, oh, he's a legend. Never mind. Like, he does this to UFC fight. I went home that night, watched a bunch of his UFC fights. And I was like, oh, he does this to UFC guys too. Never mind. I shouldn't feel so bad, so that I kind of like got a chance now to pick his brain a little bit and educate myself a little bit more and get better.
And how has your training evolved now as you become a pro? You got some fights under your belt and maybe learn the weight cut aspect of the sport. Like, has it become easier to train for a fight, or are you still like having maybe some areas where you're focusing on more than others?
No, no, no. Definitely I can't thank some of the coaches that I've allowed me to train with them enough because they gave me such important information that has made my weight cut easy. Ben Z, he's out of LA. I sought him out. Such a good coach. He just, gave me his time and is always allowing me to kind of like message him and pick his brain. And then a lot of my training now is becoming more well-rounded. My strength and conditioning is getting better because I realized where I was deficient. I was always very honest with myself. Like, where do I suck? Where am I good? Constantly need to get better. I don't have those physical attributes. My opponents are stronger than me. They're faster than me. What do I have that could level the playing field or beat these guys? And then kind of like doing a deep study and dive into myself kind of led me to this path where I got better, I got faster, I got stronger, understanding the fight game a little bit better and working on the cardio, explosiveness, and the differences in body work and weight cutting strategies. This allowed me to be a little bit wiser and also teaching some of the guys around me. One of the best ways to learn is how to teach. Through teaching, you become a student again. Which is really ironic. It's very paradoxical because as the teacher, you're also the student. It's very interesting, and those help me, I think, evolve a little bit more. That's why I'm always like, man, just be patient with me, guys. I've always been a late bloomer. I haven't gotten a finish since maybe 4 fights ago. Just give me a little bit more time. I'm going to pick up those finishes again. I started my fighting career strong. As an amateur, I got 2 knockouts. As a pro, I got my pro debut. I got a knockout within 60 seconds. Just give me some time. I think I'm going to get those finishes. They're going to be coming in. I think I'm going to be fighting to my true potential soon. I just needed some things to click. Some things to go wrong for me to, some things to kind of fall apart so they could fall into place so I understand it. So I really feel PFL, this opportunity is my moment to shine. It's forcing me to adapt and become a better martial artist. I still have a lot to learn. I don't claim that I know anything. I still have a lot to learn.
Speaking of learning and mentioned teaching there, perfect transition here to Mark Zuckerberg, who you're training with. Have a hand in his training. Like, how did this connection come together, and how did this all materialize like this?
I think he's just a big martial arts fan, and then it kind of came together because it just like things just line. It's like, how did I get in PFL? You know what I mean? Just it just lines up, and the opportunity knocks on your door, and it's up to you if you want to open the door or not. And I kind of did, and it's a great dynamic. He's a great guy. I've been training him ever since. So that's kind of how it happened. There's not too much. Like it wasn't like a I don't know, like random thing that I mean it was random, but it wasn't like I shot him in DM and like just kind of random like this. Just he was looking for, instructors and we so happened to fit his profile and we worked together and we've been together ever since, and he's doing great. He's competing, he's a martial artist, he loves the sport, so it's great. I'm very happy to have been able to be in this position. I'm honored and always inspired by his work ethic. So it kind of helps me out too, it kind of motivates me. I'm like, if someone like him wants to train that hard, what about me who's a professional? I should be training twice as hard as him. It's kind of a friendly competition in my head.
And he's a guy who's extremely busy with everything at Meta. So what
kind
are
of.
these what are these training hours like? Because I can't imagine like it's gonna be the same time every single day that he's training.
I mean, yeah, listen, he trains just like any one of us. Very similar, student of the game. Um, he does the drill. He does the drills that we give him, and then he kind of becomes a partner too. He's just like anyone else. Whenever people ask me these questions, they expect like a very interesting and intricate and like answer. It's like no, he's really a student of the game. He puts on a gi when he was a white belt. He put on the white belt and tied it just like the rest of us, and it was a class session, with him. So it was never like anything where people are like, is he like doing this specific? Is he fight training? It's like, no, just like he trains like the rest of all of us. However you think I train like a fighter or like a regular student, that's how he is. That's what makes it so cool.
And also like when he's going to competitions, like does it maybe change like a training, like when you're training somebody who's just brand new to it, obviously he does train here and there like a couple of years, but when he was first starting out, the learning curve, like how do you like maybe set it in that he's progressing at the right level and not get too ahead of like things don't go his way?
I don't know. That's a good question because I never really thought of that. It was just more like, hey, we take it day by day, just treat you like a student. If we get to the point where you want to compete, then we do that. If you don't, you don't, it's just it's honestly it's like anyone else. The thing that separates him from everyone else is his willingness to learn, like how much he wants to get after it. That's the unique part. But other than that, I'm very sorry to give you boring answers, but like
No
honestly, he
worries.
just trains like everyone else. He shows up to class and he's like everyone else. Like, yeah, I kind of want to train. No, after training for a while, I kind of want to compete, and after competing, it's like, oh, I kind of want to fight. That's about it. But I mean, he's very successful in what he does in all aspects of life, pretty much. So whatever else he wants to do, he'll do it. I think fighting is just a good sport, not just for him, but like for even for people like me, like training. If I wasn't fighting, right, I think I'd still be training just to get my mind off everyday life. I think fighting gets your mind off a lot of things because you have to be all there. You have to be present. You can't be distracted because if you are, then you're getting submitted over and over. You're not dealing with the problem in front of you. So I think it's a good escape for a lot of people. And also it's great exercise. So I think you combine those two together, it's a recipe for, fun and success. That's why I think people love it so much. Not just him, because, it's interesting. He is who he is, but a lot of people in the tech industry, like engineers and all that stuff at our gyms ended up just like that. Like they loved it because of problem solving, specifically jujitsu, because that's one of the few sports where you can go 100% not hurt each other. You know what I mean? So I think that's why he ended up loving it and kind of going the way he did, just like everyone.
Yeah, and it's a great escape too. So like when you see it, it's like a way to learn something new at the same time. And then you see these offers come out. I just want to get your take on what you make of it when you hear like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg. Like, do you buy into those like talks too much, or does he just take it like
I
day by
mean,
day?
I don't want to put more fuel on the fire because I don't think it's going to happen. So, I kind of want to shut that topic down right away, but just because I've had a couple clickbait headlines already that I'm like, hey, I don't know if the fight's gonna happen. And they're like, you don't know if Mark's gonna win. Mark Zuckerberg's trainer doesn't think Mark Zuckerberg's gonna win. I'm like, that's not what happened. These are ridiculous articles. And I'm just like, all right, I've kind of learned my lesson. So, please don't clickbait me on this. But I don't think the fight's gonna happen. That's why I don't want to shed too much light on it because we're focused on other things. So I don't want to focus on that. But um you know if he ever fights and if he ever wants to, I'm here for him. Like I'm here to help him, Mark. Whatever he wants to do, I'm in the martial arts realm. I mean, everything else in life, I'm sure he's got that covered, but whatever he wants to do in martial arts, that's my job as a coach, trainer, fighter, and student of the game to share whatever I have. And he's a big fan of MMA too, so I'm sure for him to kind of like see his own guys, someone that he's worked with, like, he'd love to see me fight too. So that's why I think this PFL thing is very interesting because not necessarily saying it's a lot of pressure, but it's like, man, like there's always going to be a difference between, you watching Conor McGregor fight, which is huge, and then maybe your best friend who's getting into a local MMA fight. It's like you're like, hey, I want to support my friend. I think that's the mentality that Mark has. So I'm pretty excited for this PFL fight because it's like, man, I got a lot of support. I got a lot of opportunities. The stars are aligned, but the pressure's now on me, And to get in there, no matter how good, like how many good things you have going on, it's you who enters that cage alone. So I need to make sure I'm doing my job correctly. So on top of training him and doing this and that, I need to make sure I'm doing my job by getting better every day at the gym. And whatever I teach him, I'm reinforcing it myself. So it's actually really interesting because by teaching him, I'm getting better too, like I was talking about earlier.
And it makes sense too. Like I know, like, I agree with you about the whole Elon Musk one, but like you mentioned there, like him being a fan, and I think that's also something where, like, even if it's not against Elon Musk and it's like him making that walk as a fighter, like, do you think it has to be like in a major promotion, or like just because of his name, like it won't be the same type of feeling for him if it's at a regional level?
I mean, everything he does it big, but it's like it's up to him. Like, do you want to do? I know Dana talks to him because Dana was trying to make that Elon thing happen. So
Yeah.
I honestly think that's a question for when it does happen, we'll know a little bit more. But it's like it both makes sense. Do you want to fight local? Do you want to fight big? What do you want? I think both make sense. It just comes down to whatever he wants, and whatever he wants, I'll be there to help him.
And for you yourself now, under the PFL, like, are you a fan of, like, do you watch UFC and other
Yeah.
promotions, or are you just locked in on
No, 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 no. I definitely watch everything still just to like I don't see it as promotions competing against each other. I look at it from like a martial arts study point of view. Like I watch, one fights. I watch UFC. I watch UFC Fight Pass fights. I watch my local shows. I watch amateurs on YouTube. I just type in MMA fights on YouTube. I might watch a fight in Minnesota all the way to Arkansas, all the way to India. Like it doesn't matter as long as I'm studying, kind of like seeing how people do certain things. So I don't really limit myself to one promotion, but you know, um, I would be lying if I said I haven't been paying more attention to PFL because now being signed with them, just kind of watching their fights a little bit more. And honestly, I think a lot of their fights are slept on. You might not have like the most known home, name like around. There's still some fights like that Clay Collard, man. Geez, that fight with Shane Burger, I was there live. That was so exciting. That's like one of the most exciting fights I've seen in a long time. And Clay, that guy's a beast, dude. I'm actually a fan of that guy when he first because he actually fought. I've always been a big fan of boxing, and he's fought in professional boxing. I think for Showtime several times, 5 times or something like he's 5-0. And I was like, dude, this is sick. An MMA fighter that's going to pro boxing, winning, and coming back into MMA and winning as well. And his hands look great that fight. So I've always been kind of a fan of his. And to see him kind of like beating a lot of these MMA guys that come over from different promotions and crisscross. It's just really unique. And I'm like, man, PFL's got a really interesting a couple guys, Sadabu, he just fought recently too. That was an interesting match. A lot of these guys, they got some good names that are slowly being built, but I just think the fights itself is very different. Every promotion has different fighting. Their fights, the styles end up kind of being different. I don't know if people know this, but like Bellator will have one, UFC will have one will have one, and PFL has one. And I just think it's so unique to kind of see the difference. Not saying one's better than the other, but PFL itself, I started paying more attention definitely like the last year. And I'm like, man, they got some quality fights that are a little bit slept on. I hope people start tuning in.
definitely. And also, you mentioned there that you're a boxing fan, and PFL, like, it's an exciting time because all these boxers that are coming over and joining the PFL, like
Yeah.
Jake Paul's coming over, Amanda Serrano was the latest one. So just being on the roster, does it make it a little bit more exciting as a fighter and a fan of the sport?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, once I get my foot in the door, I want to ask PFL how I could maybe get in a boxing fight or something, or maybe if I rub elbows with like the Serrano sister or like the Clarissa, Shields. If I see her, I'm like, hey, how do I get a boxing fight? PFL, you guys down to let me do that? So maybe we'll test the waters. But as of right now, got to get that first win first, and then maybe see if we could bring PFL to Asia a little bit. I have some plans. I know they seemed interested, so I want to stick by that narrative and say, hey, guys, I want to bring. They're in Europe. They have their tournaments in Europe. I'm like, why not dip your guys' fingers in Asia? I definitely want to be a leading pioneer for MMA. There's so many bigger names above me that have definitely pioneered the sport of MMA in Asia, but I want to continue on that legacy. I want to keep building. So I definitely want to carry that torch, and share with everyone else and just be like, there's so many more talented fighters than me in Asia. I just want to shine light on them, with the platform that I have.
That's great to hear. And with the PFL, like also expanding the Saudi Arabia deal, Africa with Francis Ngannou. So maybe you can be that guy there for Asia. That would
Yeah,
be great. Is there like
yeah.
a certain market that you think maybe is untapped that really major promotions haven't got into yet?
Well, just because I fought in Taiwan and I know Philippines has a bunch of fights and I know like Thailand, they do Muay Thai, there's a certain infrastructure that you need to understand how to build MMA over there. But like, I don't see why not. Like Singapore, like Malaysia, like I just don't see big promotions going there. I mean, other than one, right? Don't get me wrong, one's definitely been there, but it kind of seems like they're trying to expand into America now. Whereas I'm like, maybe these American promotions could go in there and, set their grounds there. So I definitely think I always want to bring MMA, whichever organization I end up being with in the future, or whatever. It's not about the organization; it's about bringing the sport of MMA to Asia. That's my ultimate goal. So who knows? But there isn't like just one untapped market per se. It's just more like just a rising tide raises all ships. It doesn't matter where it starts. I think it's just going to spread eventually. And I think it is getting more and more popular. You have Wei Li, who's the champion, and Chinese first Chinese female champion. It's very exciting times. So I definitely think the strike while the iron is hot. The next 2 years, I definitely see it really growing.
That's great to hear. And just before we wrap up, we can do some quick fire questions with you.
Sure.
Get our fans here, get to know you even better there in the gym and who you consider to be the best in these certain aspects. First one, who is the best striker?
In MMA right now,
Yeah, who do you think is the best striker?
ooh, quick fire. So it's got to be whatever comes to my mind. Man, okay, I think Volkanovski right now. He's just the goat. I mean, like he beat the striker, who's the striker, which is Max. He beat, you know, Yair, who's another different type of striker, and then Korean Zombie, who's got a chin on him that you saw against like everyone else, and the way Volk was able to just thrash him, and then Islam's not a bad striker. Everyone thinks Islam's not a striker. He's a decent striker, and he was kind of giving him the work towards the round five. Just he clipped him, rocked him. Volk, I think just the way he could switch hit right now, it's different. So I think he's the best striker.
Who do you think is the best grappler?
Ooh, best grappler. As of right now, I'm thinking. I think. I mean, man, this is an interesting one. I think John Jones has to be mentioned because the way he could wrestle, he's never spent too much time off his back. You know what I mean? Like he's just different. Like you haven't really seen him out wrestled much. Like just his awareness. Now, granted, I think it's because of his reach, like his body, it's like perfect for that style. But the fact that he's smart enough to use it correctly, that's very unique. If not him, then I gotta say like, Islam obviously is like a big name of for grappling. He's like able to do all sorts of interesting stuff with his grappling and just beat pretty much everyone with it. So I think it's gotta be those two.
This is a lighthearted one. Who do you think is the funniest in MMA?
Derek Lewis, maybe. I think Derek Lewis is hilarious. I mean, there's not one interview where you hear this guy and you're like, this is not funny. You know what I mean? Like he's not too controversial, like Sean Strickland.
Yeah,
He's funny enough where he doesn't make too many crazy jokes. It's just he's good. He knows his audience. He knows how to kind of be funny in those realms. So I think he's good.
I agree there. And a couple final ones here. Who would you like to have dinner with most?
MMA, like in terms of
Yeah,
MMA fight.
MMA celebrities or like past or present. Like who would be your ideal dinner party?
Um, hmm, that's an interesting one. I've actually never thought about this, but I think I have two answers. One would be maybe someone like GSP, like I want to pick their brain about MMA. And if I was single, and I could just like have a date with a female MMA fighter, I definitely think it'd be along the lines of, um, man, that's actually an interesting one. I've never thought this is a good one. I'm actually interested. It's very interesting that you said, oh, I'll say one just because she works with this program called Alta, and she just made her commentary debut as Laura Sanko. I mean, she seems great. She seems like a great personality, and like why not? That sounds fun. That sounds really fun.
It's a good one. Who would you like? Who would you have if you were in a street fight situation and stuff went sour? Who would you want by your side in that situation?
Oh, dude, for sure. Either Alex Pereira or Francis Ngannou. Like those two guys they're sleeping at least 5, 6 people within the first minute. Like there's those guys are scary. In terms of fighting styles, those guys in a street fight are the worst matchups possible. If MMA fights were only 1 minute fights, I think Francis and Alex would knock everyone out.
It's a good one. And final one here. What is your dream fight, either as a fan or yourself in the sport?
Oh man, man, I emulated it a lot and copied him a lot. But I think a dream fight for me is Dominic Cruz, for me to fight him. Um, because I took a lot of inspiration from him, the head movement, the footwork. Fighting him would have been something special, like, maybe when he was a little bit younger, because I would have loved the best version of him. I mean, I still think he's great now, don't get me wrong, but I always want everyone at their best. And at my best, which is going to be the next 2 years, that version of me versus the best version of Dominic Cruz, I think that would have been really cool because there's little things that I do that's like him, but I tweaked it and this and that because it's just, yeah, it would have been something special. So I would have loved that. Much love and respect to Dominic. I would love to train with him and pick his brain. That's not it. I hope it's not doesn't sound disrespectful at all, but
No,
I'm a huge fan of his.
yeah, legend of the sport there. And as yourself as a fan, like if you were to match up two guys or two women that you've always wanted to see fight but never planned out, like who would that
GSP and
great fight?
Khabib.
I like that.
That's got to be it, right? I say Khabib has a hard time cutting weight, so make them both fight at 170. That would have been the most insane matchup, I think, grappling matchup of all time. Now, I think GSP's jab would have gave, Khabib trouble because anyone with a good jab can know how to gauge a wrestler's distance, and Khabib just wants to get in on a leg. But the catch now is Khabib's wrestling because we've never seen him against a high level wrestler that or a grappler, but him versus, I think that would have been interesting.
Similar one too there. Like those two together, it's just a shame it never came together. But uh Khai, before we wrap up here and let you go, how can our viewers here at Sportskeeda MMA stay up to date with everything you're doing and follow you on social media?
Yeah, you could follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads and YouTube just by typing in my name, Khai Wu. There's not a lot of Khai Wus out there, like I always say, so I'll pop up. And if there's any other ones that pop up and they don't look like fighters, then that's probably not me. There's not a lot of Khai Wus out there, so you guys could always find my YouTube page up from my previous fights. There's some cool little videos I have up there, and then Threads and Instagram is the most active ones that I'm on, as well as Facebook for my athlete page, not my personal page. I don't post anything on my personal page, anyways. But yeah, thank you everyone for the continuous support. I'm only getting better. I don't claim that I know everything, but I think I'm more of a normal person than most fighters because a lot of fighters are badasses. They're great at doing their thing. I think I'm more normal. So, maybe that's more relatable to some people, but continue to follow the journey. Thank you for the support. And I appreciate you and your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Khai, for sharing your time and coming on here on Sportskeeda MMA. And we wish you all the best in your debut there. Definitely going to tune into that.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.